We have warm food, so we thought we'd pray and eat, and then we'll get started. Feed the people. That's the plan. So the Lord be with you. Let us pray. Good and gracious God, we give you thanks for this opportunity to gather, to consider courageous conversations, to wonder what you are up to, particularly in the Holy Land. I pray that you bless our time together and this food, this nutritious Mediterranean meal, that all would be fed in body and spirit. Amen. All right. Pastor Ben ordered.
Well, good evening, friends. Please keep eating. There's lots more food. We'll send you home with some too. But we do want to kind of get started with some primer to our conversations here, both tonight and then we have continuing sessions next Wednesday and the week after that. This whole session is going to focus on Israel and Palestine, and specifically our connection to Bright Stars of Bethlehem. Our Saviour has been connected with this wonderful organization for many years, and we want to talk more about what Bright Stars does and how it relates to the bigger picture. So tonight, my job is to work on the bigger picture part. Next week, we're going to dive in a little deeper by looking at a film that one of the students at Dar al-Kalama, which you'll hear about soon, actually produced that's about going through a checkpoint. We'll talk about that in a minute, too. And then the following week, we're going to invite and welcome Linda Edens, who is Bright Star's Ambassador for Authentic Travel. Linda's going to talk about what travel to the Holy Land looks like, and we'll have a little surprise for you at the end that'll relate to a possible trip in 2025. So we'll tell you lots more about that. But I'm going to go ahead and get started, and I have about 10 minutes to cover about 100 years. So it's a very overview kind of thing that we're doing here tonight. So let's just start out. We're going to start out in Chicago. That's a good place to be. That's where we are now. Here's where we're headed tonight. We're going across the Atlantic, across a chunk of Africa, all the way to the eastern coast of the Mediterranean Sea to Jerusalem. And here we have Israel and Palestine. That is the big triangular piece there on the map. This might give you a little better view. So Israel is there on the left with a couple of cutouts. That is for the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. To give you a sense of the size of these things, there's, of course, the state of Illinois. So you can see that we're not talking about a ton of land. And then on the right-hand side, we have Chicago, and that weird little outline that looks like it might be like for a marathon or something, that is an outline of the Gaza Strip. So this little cutout right here, I just flipped it around and scaled it up. That's the size of Gaza. That's the size of the land that we're talking about. So when you read the Bible, just about every story you'll ever hear in the Bible takes place right within this general area. It's really within just a couple of days walking. Down here we've got Egypt, and then there's the Nile, and so some stories are down here. But most everything is right in this area. It's a very small part of land that we're talking about. And to kind of give you an overview, we're going to talk about some kind of key dates. I've got a kind of a little animation video from Jewish Voice for Peace, which I think does a really good job. So we're going to we've got about a 4 or 5 minute video here, and then we'll talk a little more.
If you build a refuge for a persecuted people already lived. In the next few minutes, you'll learn why this moral quandary is at the root of the struggle between Israelis and Palestinians, and what you can do to help achieve a just peace for everyone in the region. First, there are a couple of things helpful to understand. One, all Jews fled harsh persecution in anti-Semitic Europe, especially the Nazi Holocaust. Zionists encouraged massive immigration to historic Palestine, at that time a British colony, where Jews had an age-old connection and where small Jewish communities had long existed among larger indigenous peoples. But when the UN offered the Jews...
I'm going to try and fix that weird sound glitch for a second. I just have to push a button here. We're almost there. Okay.
What would happen if you built a refuge place where another people already lived. In the next few minutes, you'll learn why this moral quandary is at the root of the struggle between Israelis and Palestinians, and what you can do to help achieve a just peace for everyone in the region. First, there are a couple of things it's helpful to understand. One, many Jews fled harsh persecution in anti-Semitic Europe. Zionists encouraged massive immigration to historic Palestine, at that time a British colony. Israelis protesting, agitating, investing, or boycotting, all to bring nonviolent international pressure on Israel to stop violating human rights of Palestinians. Throughout history, when governments have failed to push for justice, people just like you, like us, have taken the lead and won. Now it's the Palestinians' turn for freedom and justice. We can pressure Israel to end occupation and more discrimination. We want all people, Jews and Palestinians, to have equality, human rights, and democracy. We can change history. Yes.
Okay, so that video, just so you know, it's about 10 years old now, and a few things have happened since then, but I think it gives a really good overview of just the general problem that has been causing so much tension in this part of the world. They talked a little bit about, essentially, this is all about land, and it is. Prior to 1947, this place was known as Palestine by just about everybody. And you can see that most of the land was there by native Palestinians, Arab people who had been living there for generations. But there were Jewish settlements. There have been Jewish settlements in Palestine for years and years and years. Back into the 1800s, there were a small minority of Jews there. And of course, we know in ancient history, there were Jewish people there as well. But this is how things were for a long time, and it was relatively peaceful. There were not large skirmishes between these Jewish settlers and the Arabs who lived there. They mostly got along, you know, as well as any other typical neighbors do. In 1947, as they said, this was kind of post-World War II, and the newly minted United Nations said, we got to do something with all of these Jewish folks who have really suffered a lot, and they don't really have a place to go here in Europe. And so the idea was floated that they should go back to Palestine, to Israel. And many of those refugees came in, and in 1947, the United Nations said we should split this land into two. And as well as most things go, when some British people draw lines on a map in the Middle East, that's about how well this went. The Jewish settlers thought it was a pretty good deal. The Palestinians did not. That probably tells you which way things skewed, but about 55% of the land went to the minority Jewish population, and about 45% of the land was designated as Palestinian, with Jerusalem as its international capital. It seems like a nice idea now, but it did not work, and so almost immediately there was what Palestinians call the Nakba, which was in 1948. The State of Israel was established. The Israeli army came through and wiped out about 500 Palestinian villages, displaced, what do we think, about 750,000-ish Palestinians. They became refugees, and following then 1948, there was also, you know, the Arab nations around there, both, you know, Jordan and Egypt and a few others, all attacked and joined in on the war. But as the lines cleared, they ended up with this third map, where Israel had more than was even partitioned for them by the United Nations, but this extra land too. And where this little border is, and this little border is, was called the Green Line. That's essentially where fighting stopped. Jordan effectively controlled this part, and Egypt effectively controlled this part. But then in 1967, you notice it ends at 67 here, there was another war. It's called the Six-Day War. A bunch of Arab nations all attacked Israel at the same time, but Israel won really fast. In 6 days, Israel had pushed back all of those other countries, and now at the Six-Day War went even further past this Green Line, taking over both the Gaza Strip and all of the West Bank. They also took over some of Sinai down here in Egypt and some of the Golan Heights up here. It's a little bit complicated, but let's just say for the sake of this argument that they gave those things back to the respective countries. Up here, there's a couple of Syrians who are living in Israel who would disagree with you that Israel gave it back, but we have 10 minutes, so we're going to go quickly. But that's kind of left us where we are today, where Israel has control over the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, but they are not allowing the Palestinians who live there and have lived there to become citizens of Israel. They are under military occupation. They are living under a different set of laws. And in the meantime, Israel builds settlements all within the West Bank that are Jewish only. There's, advertisements oftentimes here in the U.S. You can immigrate to Israel and you can live there, and especially for Jewish folks. But where they're sending them is right over here on historic Palestinian land as a way to make it impossible for this land to be taken away from the state of Israel should any kind of two-state solution, a Palestinian state, arise, because there'll be just too many people living in these big giant condos and developments to really realistically move them out of the way. That means that Palestinians living in those little green dots have a very different life. They live under occupation, they live under surveillance. If they have to travel between any of these dots or into Israel to work, they go through things called checkpoints. It's kind of like a TSA airport screening, but on steroids. The particular Palestinian population, especially in the West Bank, they are always monitored by these checkpoints and these walls that are built by the state of Israel. If there is ever like new technology coming to the U.S. on surveillance, you can probably bet that it was developed here first. Some of these are actually automatic tear gas firing guns that are controlled remotely. They use all sorts of different AIs and things now. They have lots of surveillance models. But it is a very difficult life, and it's kind of by design that the Palestinians do not have the right to travel. They do not have the right to move around. And that's before we even get to this little patch of land here that's been in the news a lot. This is Gaza. And again, Gaza, about the size of Chicago, if you laid it flat like that. It's a very small area, and what's unique about Gaza is in 2005, Israel did have some settlements there, but they demolished them and pulled out. Unilaterally, Israel said, we're not going to be in Gaza at all anymore. There were some Jews there. They took them out by force. Many of them did not want to leave, but they hauled them all out, demolished where they were living, and said, it's all yours, Palestinians. We're not here anymore. This tiny little strip of land, Israel said, you can have it. But they also put essentially a wall around all of Gaza. There was no way in or out through here. There was a tiny little border here at a place called Rafah into Egypt, but that was also heavily controlled. Not very many things came in or out through that border. And they also then blockaded the sea with, with the Navy. And so these people, there's today about 2 million, but even at the time there was over 1 million people in this tiny little area. Today it's more dense than the city of Chicago. We don't have the exact numbers today because there's been a war in the last few months, but as of October it was more dense than the city of Chicago, I'll say that. But it's essentially turned the people living there into prisoners in an open-air prison. They mostly cannot leave or enter. They can't travel. There are some migrants who sneak through. It's very similar to our southern border where we rely on migrant work, but at the same time don't want to allow anybody to become an actual citizen. We can say a little more about what's happened since then, but that's kind of the history of Gaza and how that became such a unique area. There are no settlements there at all. In 2006, Hamas was elected as the government of Gaza, which is a more right-wing, more militant group that was there. There have not been elections since, and nobody has done any kind of peace talks with Hamas. It's not gone well, basically, at all. That's kind of the background I have. Maybe some kind of lasting thoughts, because there's a lot of information there, is everything that's happening here, it really has nothing to do with religion. There are Jewish people, there are Muslims, there are Christians who live there. It is a holy land, but all of the conflict is not about religion. It's not a theological argument. It's not my God is better than your God. It's two people fighting over land. That kind of thing has happened before. It's not that complicated. There's a lot of history. There's a lot of things that have happened. But ultimately, there are two different peoples who want to live on the same land, and they need to figure out how, and they need people to kind of get out of the way and stop just throwing weapons into a fight. So our U.S. government is heavily involved. We have been the #1 supporter of the state of Israel from the very beginning. Some of that support can be very good. It's good to support refugees trying to find a home. Some of that support, when it involves just giving weapons to countries without any limits or restrictions causes huge, huge harm. We've been funding a genocide since October of this past year. And we've been funding horrible human rights abuses going back much further than that. It hurts the state of Israel. It hurts Palestinians. It hurts us as well. I have a pastor friend, Pastor L, who was active in Ferguson around the shooting of Michael Brown and everything that happened there. And she was involved in, there was like tear gas and police brutality, and she was tweeting with Palestinian activists who told her exactly how to counteract the tear gas, because it's the same tear gas over there that it is over here. It's manufactured in the U.S. We export it to them. There's lots of symbiotic things that happen that are both good and some very bad. So finally, what can we do? What do we do with all of this stuff? There's a lot of information here. There is not a lot of hope, frankly. I think probably Israel and Palestine are further from finding a peace solution today than they have been in many decades. It doesn't seem like it's very hopeful that our current governments are going to help these groups find a way to sit down and share this land. So where do we find hope? Well, one of the places we find hope is in this group, Bright Stars of Bethlehem. Bright Stars of Bethlehem is committed to building up Palestine, building up the young people of Palestine, for providing vocational support and providing a university right in the heart of the West Bank, right in the heart of this place that has been so devastated over the decades by this occupation. And by doing that, we bring hope into that place, and we bring a strong Palestine up that will be ready when those peace talks come, when that inevitable change and shift in the sands and the worlds kind of unite. So to tell us more about that, I want to invite Chris Doucette up. Chris Doucette is the executive director of Bright Stars of Bethlehem, has been since 2019, did you come in? Since 2020. So she's had a very smooth sailing, very easy job for the last few years, but has worked so closely with Reverend Dr. Mitri Raheb, who's a Lutheran pastor that had kind of the vision that started this university, and Bright Stars helps support that vision. And I don't want to say too much more because I'm going to steal her slides, so I'm going to let her go next. Thank you, Chris.
Hi, friends. Is it on? Can you hear me? Okay. It's good to see all of you. Thank you for having us here tonight. So, I am the mom of 4 young adult children. Young adults. Let's call them young adults. Hannah is going to be 30. Summer is 27. Danny is 20. Sometimes I forget. Danny's 26. And Halela is 18. These, my kids are the next generation of leaders here in the United States. So with a raise of hands, who do you have people in your life that are those ages, 18 to 30? Okay, we all do, don't we? So again, those young people that we know and love, they are the next generation of leaders in the United States. And as Ben was saying, what's happening in Palestine and Gaza is a genocide. And if you're like me, you've been watching what's happening since October 7th. Actually, Pastor Ben was with me and a group of our colleagues in Palestine. We left late September, and we actually flew home October 6th. Well, I got home 24 hours right before everything started happening, which is crazy. A lot of our colleagues were stuck there. I will tell you a little bit about that trip in a bit, but so if you're like me, you're watching the news, you're hearing what's happening, I ask myself, where's the hope? Where is the hope in this? And I also ask myself, what can I do? So maybe you're asking yourself that question as well. So at Bright Stars, our tagline has always been, hope is what we do. That was a term that was coined by our visionary founder. So it's the very beautiful and life-giving work that we do at Bright Stars that allows me to stand before you and talk about the fact that we are, I think, one of few organizations here in the United States that we are able to present, partnership opportunities for our friends to do something about what's happening there and to bring some hope into the situation. Our vision at Bright Stars of Bethlehem is that all Palestinians would have life in abundance, and you probably recognize that from the Bible, right? To have life in abundance. And our mission is to raise awareness and support for Dar al-Kalima University, the first and only university of arts and culture in all of Palestine. And we say in all of Palestine because up until Holy Week, we had a vibrant, beautiful, life-giving satellite center in Gaza. In Holy Week, it was demolished, and I'll show you that in a second. Oh, I want to say your congregation has been a wonderful partner to Bright Stars of Bethlehem since 2012. So I just wanted to thank all of you for the wonderful partnership that your church has had with us. It makes a difference. Okay, so Bright Stars of Bethlehem was founded 20 years ago. So this year we're celebrating our 20-year anniversary. And it was established here in the U.S., basically with Reverend Dr. Mitri Rahab's incredible vision that he's had, which he's a visionary. Raise your hand if you've met Mitri before. Some of you have. This man is a scholar, a pastor. He is the most touted and theologian in all of Palestine, and he's written. There's a debate now. We think it might be closer to 50 books written or contributed to many books, and he had the vision for this life-giving organization, which is kind of started with human services. In some small classes, and then has grown into this wonderful university. Dar al-Kalima was actually founded in 2006, and it was it had like one room and a couple of desks, and I think it started with actually classes for women. And then in 2008, the first graduation class, and then in 2021, we actually became a full-fledged university. So that means now we have master's programs, and we're going to be having PhD programs as well. I would like to show you a video real quick. It's only a few minutes. Gives you an overview of the university.
I care deeply about this place. This is my home. With the partnership with Bright Stars of Bethlehem, we can make this place a home for thousands of young Palestinians. Half of the Palestinian people are youth. We want to reach them. They are the potential of Palestine, and they are our future. Our mission is to educate the next generation of creative leaders for Palestine. Through this education, we give our students the tool not only to survive, but to thrive in life and in society.
Dar al-Kalima is a place to be more free. That's where I think it's the most important thing to have in your education, how to think freely. They teach you how to prove that you can. Give us more opportunity to know the world better and to decide which way we want to go.
This university is a direct answer to the shortage of institutions of higher education with a focus on arts and culture in Palestine.
The uniqueness of Dar al-Kalima University College is that its mandate is to provide programs in visual and performing arts, cultural heritage, and tourism studies and design. We are working on creativity, we are working on art, we are working on the inside, the human spirit. And we believe that they are our ambassadors.
We envision that our alumni will be the future creative leaders in Palestine. They will be the peacemakers, and they will be the agents of social change.
Dar al-Kalima was a turning point for me as a person, because after 12 years of one system of education at school where you just receive information, it was this time for me to express myself, to experience other subjects. Teachers at Dar al-Kalima let you think for yourself, have your own opinions, your own thoughts, your own ideas.
This place matters. It matters to me, it matters to our students, it matters to our community. Dar al-Kalima is work in progress. Your support to Bright Stars of Bethlehem matters.
So you heard Mitri say that these kids are the next generation of creative leaders in Palestine. So that was the connection I wanted to make, that we care about our young people, and these are the I mean, for such a time as this, right? At this point, we need those creative leaders, and we need this life-giving education. So the 5 colleges that we have now are fine arts, and includes an incredible film program, which, what day is your film? Next Wednesday. We're going to be featuring a film that 8 of our students worked on, and it's an award-winning film as well. They were nominated for an an Oscar, right? Okay, yeah. Anyway, we have students at DAK that have actually had films in the Cannes Film Festival. Incredibly creative young people, and the art is amazing. I'll talk about that in a moment. Now we newly have a School of Architecture and Design, Cultural Management, and Graduate Studies. We have the first art therapy program that is in Palestine, which is very needed right now. And then we've got the Technical Community College for 2-year diplomas, and that one of our highlighted programs there is the Culinary Arts program. And I'll be telling you about a new incredible building that we're building. Okay, so what's going on in Gaza? We talked about that being a genocide. I'm not going to go over these stats, but I think we've all been hearing. This is just incredibly egregious what's happening. Over 33,000 Palestinians have been killed. Read on down. I mean, 164 attacks on healthcare facilities, hospitals, mosques. The thing on the right talks about, this is just absolutely heinous, but the parents were having the children write their names on their arms in case they were killed so that they could identify them. Again, it's almost unspeakable what's happening there. So how has this genocide affected our students and our programs? Before Gaza, we had 550 students at the Bethlehem campus, which is our main campus, and then that number went down to 490. And the reason for that, we'll talk a little bit more about that, but is that some of the students can't actually physically get to the campus because they live in surrounding towns, and there's all sorts of blockades now in the West Bank. Some of the other students are unable to afford the small tuition that they are asked to pay. Bright Stars augments the tuition quite high, very much, but there's a incredible unemployment going on now with the parents because of what's happening, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. We used to have 120 Gaza Satellite Campus students. They were thriving. Now the school can't function. In fact, there is no higher education in Gaza that's happening right now. All of the schools have been leveled. None of the young people are attending universities. We had this beautiful, thriving building that the students went to. We were actually renting it, and now that it's been bombed and destroyed. We had 18 volunteers. These young people would go into local schools for the little ones, and they'd teach them art therapy, and they would do murals around town. And now we have 14 because 4 of our precious volunteers have been killed. This is what our building used to look like, and up until Holy Week, we thought it was going to be saved, and we would be able to re-inhabit it. But then during Holy Week, it was completely bombed. These are some of the volunteers that we've lost. On the left is Muhammad. The last time I came, I shared the story where Muhammad was working with little children. He was one of the volunteers that did art therapy. And he decided one day he would go and be with the little children that were in the hospital, and they thought that was a refuge, and these children were there. And he was singing and dancing. You can see this was the day that he went to sing and dance with the children, and actually did trauma therapy where he would try to calm down their nervous systems by the songs that he sang and the hand movements. We have a video of this, and the next day he and all of the children were killed with a bomb. His name was Muhammad. Next to him in the middle, there are 2 gentlemen. The one on the right, his name is Muhammad. The one on the left, his name is Motaz. Muhammad he was one of the winners of the Karima Abood photography contest that we have every year. And when I was there on one of my first trips, I actually got to see the Zoom call on the stage with all of these guys, and it might have even been the year that he won, with all these students, and they were so excited. They announced the winners. Muhammad won, I think, first place, and Motaz won second place. Muhammad, when he was trying to get some flour for his family, was just shot by a sniper a couple weeks ago and killed. Motaz, on the other hand, is a very, very famous journalist who just won the GQ Man of the Year award. He's only 25 years old, and he was one of the journalists that has been, telling the hard stories, taking the pictures, and he is famous around the world now. And he was connected to Dar al-Kalaman. He was best friends with Muhammad. This woman, I think her name is Halim, and she was a mother of 3 little ones, and she was a very celebrated artist in Gaza. She was volunteering for us, and she and all of her little ones were killed recently. Oops, I'm too far away. Okay, but again, where's the hope in this? There is hope. I want to tell you a story about Ismail. Ismail's my friend. When I started in 2020 at Bright Stars of Bethlehem, I started literally the first day of the pandemic is when I started my job. And I thought to myself, how am I going to tell stories about Bright Stars when I've never been to Palestine? And that's when I set about to work with our ambassadors that we have around the country. And if any of you would like to be an ambassador, let me know, or Tracy or Ben. Ambassadors are just folks that help us to tell the story, to get the word out about our events. And most of our ambassadors have traveled to Palestine. So I work with them to get their stories, but I also decided I'm going to try to make relationships with these students. I've worked in education for many, many years, and I love, to me, working with the young people and developing the relationships and telling their stories. That's what it's all about. So I ended up doing a Zoom call with one of the administrators in Bethlehem, and then I said, I want to meet one of the students in Gaza. And she said, okay, I've got this one student, he's really quite talented. So I found out his story, and that is a couple years before that, he had put in to get a scholarship at the Bethlehem campus, and they gave him the scholarship because they saw how talented he was. But then the Israelis would not let him get a permit to go to Bethlehem, and he was very sad and frustrated. A little while later, Mitri was one of the few people that got permits to go into Gaza, as in his position. So he would travel there every now and again, and he went into Gaza, and he talked about the wonderful programming that was happening in Bethlehem. And I'm not kidding you. When he got back to his office, like 250 young people either Instagram friended him or Facebook friended him, and they said, we want this in Gaza. And so Mitri, when he sets out to do something, he does it, right? Those of you that know Mitri, he gets it done. And he started this program. And that's when Ismail said, I want to, now I have a chance to do this. So Ismail was one of our star students. When I did the Zoom call with him, I learned that he had, as a child, between the time he was born and the time at that point when he was 22, he had been in 4 wars. And his artwork when he was younger was very dark pencil drawings with children crying and holding onto their moms and stuff like that. He was very talented. But as time went on, he talked about how it was a way that he could kind of process his trauma, right? And then as time went on, he started being asked by his neighbors and businesses in Gaza to do murals as like an advertisement for their businesses. So he started doing that. And then when I was talking to him on the phone, or on the Zoom, he was using a translator at the time, and then he disappeared, and the translator disappeared, and I'm like, where did they go? And the lady in Bethlehem said, oh yeah, that happens all the time, because at the time, this is before the genocide, the Gazans would only get internet 4 hours a day. So she's like, it's not unusual that would happen. But what he did, and his mentor, his friend, they hopped on a bike or something, and they went, and 15 minutes later, they popped back up, and they went found another cafe where there was some internet. But to me, that just showed like the resilience and the resourcefulness of Palestinians. Anyway, we commissioned him to do a painting, and if you see my business cards over there, this beautiful painting. Oh, actually, I think it's up here, the one on the left. His paintings and his murals became more and more vibrant and colorful, and then Ismail, about 18 months ago, got out of Gaza. His dream was to be an artist internationally, and he got out of Gaza through Egypt, and he ended up with his brother in Sweden, Stockholm, Sweden. And then things were a little bit difficult to get his visa, so he ended up moving to Brussels, Belgium. And as you can imagine, when October 7th hit, I've been in communication with him, and he is just absolutely devastated because his mom and dad and sister and brother-in-law and baby brother, and now he has 2 nephews. His sister gave birth while they were being evacuated in southern Gaza. Their homes were bombed. The family is still all alive, but he is very concerned. But I have to say that in all my conversations with Ismail, I just wish you could meet him, and I've never met him in person, but the fact that he still has hope, and he told me to tell my U.S. friends that to ask for prayers about Gaza, but also said, I want them to know that we still have hope, and that he's just a wonderful example of our students at the university. This is an example of one of his murals that was bombed. Okay, this is a picture of me and some of the beautiful young people that I met when I was on my recent trip. That was the recent trip, right, Ben? Because Ben helped me to take some of these pictures. Again, I wish you could meet these young people. They are so vibrant and so have so much hope. Even though before October 7th, they had a lot of challenges because they had restrictions in movement. It's very difficult to find a job as a young person there. But there, again, so much hope. The one in the middle there, where I'm with the young lady, she's got coasters. Those are art pieces that she made out of little tiny pieces of wood. And this gal, her name is Shy. She was trying to teach me how to play guitar. Poor thing, I'm so not musical, but she gave it a good try, teaching me a chord or two. Okay, I want to really quickly tell you one more story about this young lady. Her name is Jude. And when I was on my trip last year, before the trip with Ben, I went to different cities to meet graduates of Dar al-Kalima, as well as current students and professors and community leaders to do interviews. And we were in Hebron, and we left Hebron. We had a driver. The driver was actually a student of Dar al-Kalima. His name is Ramez. And he said, okay, he was helping me to meet different students. And he said, I've got a young lady who lives in the refugee camp that's between Hebron and Bethlehem, and we're going to go meet her now. So we're in the car. All of a sudden, he gets a phone call. And I hear crying. And I'm like, what's wrong? What's wrong? And he said, oh, my gosh, we've got to go get her now. We had planned to pick her up on the corner in her refugee camp. We screeched to a halt. I jump out. We heard from her in between sobs that she had been tear gassed. So I jump out of the car. I grab her as a mama. I'm like, come here, trying to protect her. And I said, get in the car. I turn around, and there's the tear gas shells right on the ground. She's crying hysterically, but also her eyes are burning. And I said, honey, it's okay. You don't have to do the interview. And she said, no, I want to because I love my school and I want to talk about it. And I said, okay, so we went to this little refuge place where there were animals and it was Palestinian owned. And I said, are you sure you want to do this? And she said, yes. So she wipes her eyes off, and it was just bizarre kind of providence that there was this mural of the angel wings. You've seen these before. And I'm like, okay, stand here. She gave the most poignant, poised interview I've ever heard, and that's something that we've posted on our social media. She's a tourism student, and she wants to make a difference in tourism. And I was able to do a further interview with her later, which I would like to show you now. Oh, maybe we didn't download that one. I don't think we downloaded it. Okay. She's thanking Bright Stars because she was able to get a full scholarship for her schooling. And that was probably, what do you think, Ben? That was like October 4th or something like that? Yeah. The students are now back. After October 7th, they were only going to school virtually because everything was closed down. On February 19th, they started going back to school in person. And Jude is best friends with Lucy. Jude is Muslim, Lucy is Christian. I want to tell you about Lucy. Lucy is a great example of what our need is at Bright Stars right now, because Lucy's father used to work in Jerusalem, and there are 165,000 permits that were given by the Israelis to Palestinians to come and work in Israel, or in Jerusalem. Those permits after October 7th were completely canceled. So Lucy's father is unemployed. Her mother used to work at a souvenir shop. And you know what happened with all tourism, right? It's all closed down. So Lucy's, both of her parents are unemployed. So right now at Bright Stars of Bethlehem, at Dar al-Kalima, they have a $800,000 tuition gap because the parents used to pay about $1,500 for each student for tuition. The tuition costs $5,000, and we augment that. So again, Lucy's a great example of the need, and hope is what we do. And if you find it in your heart to partner with us, that's one major need that we have. I'm gonna kind of spin past this because we're running out of time. What is DAK doing in Gaza now? This is our director. Her name is Rana. She escaped from Gaza recently with her 2 children, but she's still doing work for the Gaza Center. In fact, she is coordinating the volunteers that are on the streets of Gaza right now to do work with the children, to do art therapy, to do face painting, and this is happening. This beautiful, life-giving artwork with the children is happening right now through Dar al-Kalima University in the streets of Gaza, bringing hope. We did a live event recently, and I had to ask the 2 women. I was interviewing Rana, and I said, are those kids smiling? Were those pictures taken before October 7th, or is that happening right now? And she said it's happening now. So to me, that's hope right there. These are the kids, and this is happening right now in Gaza. Again, how can you do hope with us? Pray, join our ambassador team, visit our website, follow us on social media, and donate. Again, the church is a partner, but individually, if you find it in your heart to partner with us, any amount of donation will help. And then also, the authentic travel is something else you can do, because right now trips are starting to be planned, and you can join a trip if your church does one soon. This is the hospitality center that I told you we're building, and that's another project that we need funds for. It's going to be a one-of-a-kind. You see the thing on top? It's going to have a 360 view of the Holy Land in there. And we've got a gala coming up on September 7th. That's something else you can do, hoping that maybe your church might do a watch party as well. And this is an event coming up on May 5th, and it's in Evanston, and Mitri will be here in person. And this will be a panel talking about the issues. I think it's going to be a really compelling event. And Mitri's book is over on the table over here, Decolonizing Palestine. The books are $20, and we're selling them tonight. And I just, again, wanted to profoundly thank you for all of your work that you do with Bright Stars, and appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. We have like 1.5 minutes for questions here, but if there wants to be additional conversation, we'll encourage you to make your way out into the lobby. And Chris, are you okay to hang out there for a little bit too? Any questions as we're gathered here before we kind of pick down tables? And I've got like 20 middle schoolers who are ready to run in here and do things, so I don't want to keep them waiting too long. All right. Well, thank you so much, Chris. And again, we'll be back here next Wednesday. We have a film, and I did look it up. They were nominated for an Academy Award, so they were in the Oscars for Best Short Film. And then they also won a BAFTA, which is a very, very high honor, too. So it's a really good one. So that'll be next week. The week after that, we'll be welcoming Linda Edens, who is a board member at Bright Stars, and talking about travel. Thank you all so much. There's a trash can over there. If you just want to take any disposable things, pop them in the trash. There's a spot underneath on the